All right, we are on video, we are unmuted, and we are live, so Bill, if you
Okay.
wanna.
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday, August 13th, 2025 meeting of the Personnel Board. And we're calling the meeting to order at 5:44. And the first thing is to make certain we have a quorum, so Kate Ryan
Here.
and Josh Fay here, and Bill Marachek here, so we have three people, which constitutes a quorum for the Personnel Board. We're gonna start with the approval of the minutes. Now, we're still working on December's minutes. Hopefully we'll make some progress. We do have the May 14th minutes. Any questions, comments, concerns? On May 14th, 2025?
You're.
Look good.
Well, I wrote them.
Yeah. Jimmy.
There.
Okay, so let's go and we'll do
They're
a
in the
one,
meeting room, but I
well,
don't
we should
think
have a
it's
motion to
streaming.
approve the meeting of May 14th.
I move we approve minutes for the meeting of May 14th.
All right,
Second,
all in favor?
Yes.
yes,
And yes, we have a unanimous. The June 18th minutes, in fact, will be, they're done and they will be included in the vote for next month. And we have the July 9th minutes for review,
I'll walk in.
for approval. Any comments, questions, concerns on the?
Hi, everybody, apologize for the. Yet again bombing incident, I think we're gonna try to either not do Zooms or switch to webinar format next month, but. Just.
yeah, I just wouldn't want anybody.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna put my reading, so these, let's.
Oh, I'm gonna hang into.
All right. I don't know where.
So I think we were at the point of a motion to approve the July 9th, 2025.
Can you move on that?
Oh, yeah, I move that we approve the July 9th meeting minutes. I did actually read them.
A second, all right, all in favor, Kate?
Yes,
Yes, Bill, yes. All right, we're gonna move on to item number 3, which is the Assistant Town Manager,
Make you a co-host, that might be easier.
Director HR report. Jess.
All right, so I've got a couple different items. The first, I want to introduce Nicole Gately. She's our new HR generalist, although you've been here, what, 3 months now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so new-ish. Let me just, here you go. I know that the board has desired having Melissa Smart, our benefits manager, come to one of our meetings. She was my first, no offense, first choice for tonight, but she unfortunately couldn't be here. So I said, well, Nicole's new, so we'll bring her so you can meet her, say hello. Any questions you might have for her, and then we'll plan to have Melissa come next month.
Maybe Nicole, you could just give an overview of the responsibilities that you have.
Sure. So, as the HR
Oh, but you
generalist,
signed it.
I have a variety of HR responsibilities. Most of my time right now, we're really busy with recruitment. So I'm assisting the departments, with their hiring needs. And then I'm still in my training period, so I'm kind of, Erin's right-hand person. Anything she needs help with as far as, leaves, I conduct new hire orientation,
You do a lot of the administrative functions.
yeah, just a lot of administrative functions, with HR, as I'm still, learning, the processes and procedures here, with the town.
and your previous employment was where?
Sure, I have about 20 years of HR experience. Right out of college, I started as a recruiter and staffing, and then I moved into, talent acquisition operations with large companies, private sector. And then, when I moved into HR operations, like an HR generalist role within private sector, I took the position, moving into the public sector, working for Fitchburg State University for about 4 years. And then the last, almost 4 years, I was with, UMass Lowell. I was actually their HR specialist specifically for the facilities department. So I have about, public sector and 20 years old.
Okay, very cool. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We actually met at a MMHR thing.
Yeah, we sit next to each other.
Well, thank you, Nicole, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're able to just share with us a little bit about you and your background, and obviously welcome to come here anytime in the future that you want, but I think the board is really wanting to try to extend out a little to get to know the people who are in the HR organization here for the town. Because it seems like there are a lot of really talented people with good experience, and so we're glad that you're able to share that with us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. It's great to meet you all.
Excellent. So, yes, you're welcome to stay, or I know you've got
I'll
a
stay for a
little
little
one, so it's up to you.
It's my first meeting.
All right, I'm just gonna give you that, so keep an eye in case anybody shows up. All right, so Munis payroll update, payroll has done their third check now under the new system. It's getting a little easier each week. We're still working through a couple of tiny kinks here and there as we hammer out the accruals and balances and things like that, and entries, but otherwise it's going well. Our payroll manager over in the finance department's done a really great job alongside the town accountant, so that's going smooth. We're working through now. The other pieces of Munis, continuing to meet with them to work through Munis recruiting, the employee self-serve module, personnel actions, and that's been a big lift of work actually for Aaron and Nicole. They've been kind of leading up those pieces to get us ready to make that next shift, which will get us away from Cornerstone, which we'll get into a little bit when I talk about reporting. Handbook update, we are still waiting for legal to get back to us. There's just been some delays on legal's end, dealing with some other cases. I know they've had some court appearances and just some other things happening with their other cases, and then we've been busy with some other matters with them as well. So the handbook is going to get reviewed, and we're still hoping to get it rolled out hopefully by this fall if possible, because everybody's really anxious to get that and get the draft to this group to review it and discuss it and get it out to the employees, and then hopefully get it implemented. So I'll keep you posted on that. The last big one is reporting. So I put this on the agenda because there definitely, there still seems to be some confusion, possible misunderstanding within the community, regarding reports that have been presented to the personnel board. So I just want to offer a little bit further clarification and context, and we'll even get into a little visual that Carrie's going to present. So I did look back, and I know that back at the January 8th meeting this year, as well as the February 12th meeting, we definitely touched on these reports and the figures and struggles we were having with them, and that the accuracy, while the head counts and whatnot were accurate, it wasn't specifically pulled and tied to budget and payroll. So for example, one thing I had mentioned was that vacancies, because we didn't have position control, weren't being tracked as part of that report. So sometimes the numbers look like we hired a bunch of people but didn't have FTEs with us because those vacancies were never reported, which again was largely due to, you know, the limitations with our former payroll system, ADP, again, the position control, tracking for vacancies, et cetera. And now that we're with Munis, we're definitely moving in a much better direction. Munis has full position control, and we're excited to be able to push out a lot more, you know, accurate, comprehensive reporting once we're able to get in and learn the ins and outs on some of the report running. The three of us have all been doing some dabbling with that. And there's actually a report in there, which I'll let Aaron walk you through when we get to it. Um, and then, we're talking about vacancies. Yeah, so we're gonna touch a little bit now on just kind of the three systems and the history of kind of where we've been and some of the challenges we've had with the reports to help make it clear. Did you want me to walk through your chart or do you?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm excited to pretend I'm gonna be a teacher. So I am a visual person. I am more of a finance person. I use different terms than Jess. And so I wanted to try to explain this the way that I see it in the hopes of being helpful. So we, as Jess mentioned, if you start up here, this is where we were back in October of 2023, using three different systems to track, one system to track budget, one system to track payroll, and then one system to track our HR information systems. Now, when we bought into Cornerstone, maybe in 2017 or 2018, it was with the understanding that there would be some interconnection between ADP and Cornerstone, and that Cornerstone would be the HRIS or the HCM piece to ADP. I don't think that really ever happened, but I put a dashed line here because there was some connection between those two systems. But there was no connection between these two systems and our budget system, Munis. And so when we talk about FTEs and people refer to our budget book and they're looking at FTEs and saying, why, your budget book says you have this many FTEs, but these reports that you're running out of these systems, they don't match. And Jess has been referring to that as that the data is inaccurate. What, from my perspective, it's not inaccurate, it's just not reconciled to budget. Right, and in order to, and the reason it's not reconciled to budget is because payroll is only tracking people that in positions that we're paying. And so in order to reconcile to budget, I'm saying it's a manual process. We can do it. We haven't been doing it for the purposes of these reports. But it can be done. But if you're looking at budget and you're trying to compare it to the reports that you're seeing, it won't match. Some of the comments that I have heard are, the FTEs in the budget aren't matching again what Jess has been showing. And I've pointed out that, well, you can see that the light plant FTE headcount is in that report. That you can't look at the town's general fund budget book and it's not gonna match it's not gonna match total FTE because we have a general fund and we have multiple enterprise funds that have FTEs associated with that. So you have to be able to aggregate all of that data. The other thing that is odd in ADP is we had it set up for reporting and we had this thing called home departments. And so one thing I heard often was, why does the town manager's office have 10 FTEs? Well, because there are 10 staff members whose payroll gets signed off by the town manager. So they may be paid out of different budgets, but from a payroll, it was flowing up for reporting purposes that way. So we're not here anymore, thankfully. We're here where we have budget and payroll in the same system now, and they can talk to each other. But Cornerstone, the HCM, HRIS system is still outside of that. But it is easier now to link payroll and budget. But what is not linked yet is position control, because the position control would sit here.
Mhm.
And so we would still, in order to link budget to the reports you're seeing, it's still a manual process because the position control is here. And what we're doing right now is we are manually mimicking, I guess, for lack of a better word, what will be in the automated position control down here. So Aaron is manually, anytime we are we have a vacant position and we're looking to open that up for recruitment. She's manually filling out a form so that we can tie that to budget. So this is where we are now. It's a much better place because the payroll is directly linked to budget. But then down here, where we're trying to get, and I put January 2026, but we may be moving faster than that because our Cornerstone software license renewal is in October. We don't wanna have to pay that, so I think we're gonna dump that data so we don't renew with Cornerstone. But it will still be manual until we bring this system online. So then we'll be able to run reports out of one place for multiple purposes. And you'll be able to, we won't have this issue with, why isn't the data matching? So that's it felt important to me to explain this because, we're getting people asking questions about data, and it's not, you're looking at it for one purpose. Your purposes may be different, and the data is different, but it's not inaccurate from my perspective. It's just not reconciled to other pieces. It's not that what's coming out of payroll that data is inaccurate. I guess I would say it's incomplete because it's not taking into account vacant positions. So that's
My question, Carrie, is that, in my experience with legacy systems, is, it's always a pain. And are you confident that the Munis staff is going to be able to take the Cornerstone data and integrate it into the Munis system? Or is there gonna have to be some additional software manipulation because the language that the Cornerstone is in is not the same as Munis? And legacy systems have to be.
So,
that's probably more for
yeah,
the HR
so
staff.
Cornerstone is basically just where people apply for jobs at this point. So everything for position control has been built by the consultants at Munis with our assistants, again, mostly Aaron. So we have people set up now in Munis payroll linked to a position, and that's all been built. So Cornerstone, again, it's gonna be pretty easy to kind of move away from that. The piece that has to connect and tie in now is the Munis recruitment and personnel action forms, because in theory, somebody would be able to apply for a job, they're gonna be applying through Munis. Then when we move them to hire, we'll pre-populate certain fields in the employee master, and the job will be posted based on the position control. And then that's kind of that automation. So right now, literally, once we move somebody to hire, like through Cornerstone, it's Aaron, I think now, literally going in and typing their entire employee profile in Munis. So it's kind of manual right now, but it's because we're in. Again, the priority is always to get payroll built first, and then we'll bring in recruitment and personnel actions. Like, we're still doing like change of status forms, which are all manually done on Excel, but eventually those will be done through personnel action forms within the system, and it will.
So for existing employees, then I think what you're saying is the data transfer really came through the conversion from ADP
Right.
to Munis, so that it's mostly happened already.
Right, and then the budget and everything, and orgs and objects were assigned, so that was a lot of work that like Zach and the finance, folks did, that they tied in. It's like, if you go into like Erin's profile now, she's linked to an actual org and object, which is the HR org and the full-time salary object. So then anything paid to her, whether it's, vacation time, whatever, it's linked to that org and object, which then they'll be able to see that when they run the budget reports. So yeah, that's built, like, in Cornerstone is really just job applications at this point. So this next step should hopefully.
Well, let me give an example of what I'm trying to get at it, which is. And what I'm used to. So, having a history of progression and jobs in an organization. You have employees, some of them have been here 30+ years. But how far back, if at all, are you going to be able to go in order to track and know what the history is of that employee and his or her employment.
Right,
job.
so for Munis, they'll only have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, they'll only have the history in there for July first of this year. But there is historical information going back a certain time frame within ADP. Well, obviously, we didn't have ADP 30 years ago. And our IT folks, Jason Bulger, they're working with finance to figure out how to extract and preserve that information. So we might have to have hosting of ADP for a few months just to get that information out of there. But that piece of the project we actually aren't involved with, but
So ADP is then tracking the historical.
well,
Record,
it is
job
and it
record?
isn't. So yeah, we have paper files. Yeah, a lot of paper files. But then in terms of like people's payroll, like it is in ADP back to a certain point. I don't know when we moved to ADP, but again, it's like if you were to look at somebody's pay, one of the big problems we had is it'll say like, Josh Fay got a, payroll check for $3,500, but it doesn't tell us like there was overtime, there was his education, like it's not broken out, it's just one number, which was one of the biggest struggles with ADP and for us to try to pull information for budget and like costing of union contracts, because you couldn't see the breakdown unless you pulled out the paper file and then, get your calculator out, and even then, it's not
So,
easy to read those change of status forms.
so paper files are gonna continue.
Well, for now, but our goal is to get everything scanned. We've actually started to build, with Nate Smith's help, a tree for like digital personnel files. They'll be going through and scanning like their, like we have paper time off sheets. We'll scan and preserve all of those, but they'll be in a digital file. They will of course be fully backed up within the system, but the idea is to get away from having like, filing little pieces of paper.
So is there a plan that's been, a written plan put together to take those documents and scan them with some kind of goals and some kind of timeline?
Not a formal written plan, no, we've just talked about it and we're like, oh, maybe this summer we'll start tackling some of it, but then that didn't happen this summer with Munis and getting everything onboarded for July 1st. But we have, I think, has Nate started building folders
Yeah, I
already
think
for
we
people?
have the framework of what we envision it
Yeah.
to be, we just haven't formalized what the process will look like to get everything
Right.
scanned in.
So is there a value in actually writing down a plan or at least an outline of a plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it should be pretty easy because it's up here.
Yeah.
But basically we'd have like, again, I'll go back to Josh Fay, he'll have a folder, then he might have one for like, um. Payroll actions or, status change, things like that. That'll be all of his pay changes would be scanned and put in there. The ARC forms, there'll be a folder for that. And, policy sign offs will have a folder. And every employee will have the same tree of folders within their name. And then we can scan and add to it whenever we have.
so where does the retirement board obtain its information?
Like what type of information, like we,
Dates of employment, dates of termination.
yeah, so they're in
and
the loop.
cost, the salary. I mean, I understand those are variables that are play right into.
Yes, so
budget.
retirement gets the change of status form copies, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if they're getting copies of offer letters, they might be, but they'll at least get the change of status saying somebody's been hired. Then there's a new member enrollment form, which we've actually started. To help with the effort, because they sit, 5 miles down the road that way, like everybody in Concord is. They come in and they fill out the new member enrollment form, and then there's the beneficiary form as well, but really the new member enrollment form is what they need to get their profile and things built up in there, because retirement has its own system, its own, the name of what it is escapes me. And they get basically everybody entered in there. Yes, PTG, thank you, Carrie. Then like if they have years of service or money sitting in another municipality, they will do that correspondence work with them. They'll get stuff from that retirement system to bring that person's years of service, salary information, all of that into their system, so they consolidate. Because as long as you don't cash out all of your years of service and your time and your money, contributions go with you to your next community, so. And then they track that going forward, and then when somebody retires, we give them whatever the final forms are to say they've separated, here's their final, payout, whatever, and then. they go there and then they do all the calculating for, you know, what the pension will be, and they have PARAC approve the numbers, and there's a whole other process there, so.
I think it's, for me, it's a classic example of why having one system that can accommodate various users is less costly than having the retirement group having its own system. You're paying for your contribution to the PTSG or whatever that's called. And, you know,
And I think
If-
the statute, retirement has to be completely separate,
Yeah,
they
it's
cut their own
separate.
checks, they cut their own pay, yeah.
They are an independent agency.
they are, okay.
Yes.
Right, kind of like a housing authority, they're like sort of part of the town, but not really.
So the way though that they get that, the basic information is it's a paper copy. So the paper copy is then used to populate the PT.
Yeah, they enter however they set up people in their payroll system, and then again, I don't know how transfers, I assume are wire transfers in from the other retirement systems, maybe it's actually a check that's, I don't know how they do that, but they do. Log and they track all the years of service, and then they actually, we all get like a statement once a year that tells us like, here's your years of service, and I mean, it's down to like, you have. You know, 10 years and 3 months and 52 days, you see them, Kate,
Yeah,
Um,
and yeah, no, it's
yeah,
on there.
exactly, like your annuity amount, all that, they're obligated to send that out once a year to everybody, so.
Thank you for the additional information.
Yeah, no, more than you probably ever wanted to know, but there you go. So then the only other thing I wanted to add is, you know, I talked this through with Bill, but there was an email chain in your packets tonight.
Mhm.
That the public records requester had asked to have included, which essentially just highlights. Some of the difficulties we've had in terms of pulling together some of these records and information with the 3 different systems that we've talked through. And some of the EDP data not being as clean and user friendly as it really should have been for the purposes of trying to pull some of these reports, so. And yeah, so we're basically just working through learning how to create and customize reports within Munis. Wanting to help you guys get what information you need. I know that tracking turnover and trends has been something that's been of interest to the board, as well as employee tenures, and then anything else you want us to try to report on. We'll see if there's a way that we can start pulling that and providing that at future meetings. And there is one sample that Erin pulled together that's in the packet that I can have her walk you through as well.
Yeah.
As part of our playing around with the system.
So there's 2 things for July in the packet. There's a list of new hires, so this is all statuses, all departments, so there was 9 total in the month of July. And so this was just pulled based on a Munis report and with the start date of July. So that was pretty easy to put together. The second report is a turnover report, and I will say this one is manual. Nicole and I are trying to keep better track of any sort of resignations and retirement checklists, that actions that need to be taken. So we put together a spreadsheet, and within that spreadsheet, I marked a column for resignation or retirement. And so I was able to put this information together as well. So
I mean, I don't know that we have a steady stream of involuntary resignations, but is that tracked separately,
it's not something I'm currently putting in the reports.
like terminations as opposed to resignation?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all coded the same.
yeah.
I have a question about the, back to the, personal record request,
Mhm.
public record request. There must be some database that is, I can't remember who's responsible for, there's a person who's responsible for tracking, who's responsible for getting the request, and then designating who is to
Yes, Nate
exercise
Smith.
the.
Yep, Nate Smith
We-
gathers all the
okay.
public records requests. Sometimes some will come individually to people, but most people kind of know the drill and they go to the records person. Or if we get one that's not like, kind of like the ones Kate and I get all the time, like, hey, can you send me your police contract? I just respond to those,
Yeah.
but. He funnels everything, he tracks it, he sets up folders, puts all the he manages all that, he makes sure that we're like, hey, this is due in a couple of days, like, do you have the stuff, and he runs that, but yes, he farms that out to whoever the department is that needs to respond to that.
And so there's also must be in this particular database, the time when the recipient or the requester receives feedback or
Yes,
receives
yes,
a response.
yep,
And what's the backup if Nate, that's his name, sorry, Nate,
yeah, Nate Smith.
if he's out sick or on vacation or.
I believe
Who-
Kari
The-
takes
the
that
town
over,
clerk.
yeah.
Okay, so there's
Yeah.
a way to make certain that nothing falls through the.
No.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay.
On that topic, I don't think so, unless, like I said, anybody had any other, feedback for types of reports they'd like to see us try to run in the future. They're
I
gonna
think
continue.
that's gonna be a work in progress.
Yeah,
And I think what we've had in the past is really a good place. And we will, I'm sure, give you some suggestions as we have future meetings.
yeah, definitely, and we're, like I said, we're just kind of poking around, starting to play with it, and I'm hoping we're gonna get a training set up at some point down the road. Really for anybody that's interested in seeing what kinds of reports you can run, I know that there's, even going back to, like the Munis financials, like I know there's a lot more. Different types of reports and things that people can run, that I know there's a desire with new staff coming on and new admins and whatnot to learn more just about even running like AP and financial reports in addition to the staffing reports and things that we can run here. So I'm hoping we can just get some training on that at some point for the folks at Munis. But again, they're focused right now on getting the thing built for us. Then once it's built, we can be like, okay, do you have any hours left in the budget that we can use to learn reporting and things like that? So.
I have a super basic question, Aaron, about the first of the reports you included,
Sure.
which is. Do I read it with, I see BD Swim and Fitness Center below that are the number hired in the various statuses as opposed to. Grouped between the lines, like,
Yeah, so BD, there was one limited, one temp, right?
Yeah, it goes across.
okay, and so like, as you see, like. Between the lines, it says limited status temporary Concord Police Department, so I'm not reading up, right? I'm
I
reading
see what
down.
you're saying, yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a way that I can actually, like change the pivot table so it's a lot
As
clearer.
long as I'm clear what I was looking at,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the numbers that go across.
This is a good example though, because like, rec is on here and we know that that's paid from a revolving account, water sewers broken. I don't think our old reports broke out to that level, because again, it wasn't tied to the budget, but now if we look at this, it's like, okay, we know which funds are which, but that's just a further breakdown as well.
Mhm.
Cause I know there's been questions about that just in other meetings and other venues of like, who's paid out of enterprise and general fund and those FTEs, so.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, the tracking employee satisfaction discussion. And this is, I had an opportunity to have a brief conversation with Mark. And shared with him the questions and progress that we were making in regards to this, and I thought it would be helpful, certainly based on our last meeting. There were some good questions here about, again, what would be the role of the personnel board. And we actually have, obviously, with the town manager here, having that particular perspective as well. So, Mark, do you want to start us off?
Sure, and I think the select board recognizes that the personnel board spends a great deal more time on staffing, personnel matters, and our process related to employment and human resources activity than the select board could ever do. And so what we were looking for is to establish the practice of soliciting input in our annual evaluation of both the town manager and also accomplishment of the organizational goals. And those goals, I think, have more to do with things like how are we doing attracting and retaining staff, Your discussion about the fact that vacancies are now available, prompted me to ask, is it possible to track the length of vacancies and sort of longitudinally look at how are we doing it at recruiting to fill the vacancies that occur over time. So I think the select board is more interested in those. We recognize that employee satisfaction, while useful, is generally useful longitudinally, in the sense that if we have a satisfaction process that yields some data over time, we can look from one year to the next and sort of directionally understand that, rather than try to dig real deeply into the subjectivity that any one survey might result in. So the select board is interested in what kinds of things the personnel board thinks are good key performance indicators that would suggest that we're doing well as an employer, that we're doing right by our employees, that we have efficient and effective administration of HR. And so those are the things that we would like to see proposed for sort of an annual, or it could even be more frequently than annual, but at least an annual report that we would then incorporate into our evaluation of how we're doing achieving our goals as set out by the select board and town manager goals. Is that helpful to your discussion?
Absolutely. I think that's a good starting point.
I agree, that is helpful clarification, I think, as to what select board is asking us for.
And of course, we were aware of the fact that you were already working on some dashboard activities that seemed to be leading in that direction anyway, and I thought that it was worthwhile to highlight those. One of the major categories of the goals that we tend to look at is the organizational resilience goals, and so obviously being an attractive employment opportunity for skilled staff, which we need, retaining the skilled employees that we have, and are both, potentially key metrics if it's possible to do those.
Hey, you want to?
Well, yeah, I guess I wanna start with a question for Mark, if that's okay. Is the select board asking any other boards or committees to be involved in the annual evaluation of the town manager? I ask because I guess I'm concerned that if you start with the personnel board, and I understand we have a unique position as we're in the charter, but there are other boards and committees in the charter, and so I'm just trying to understand if the select board if this is gonna be a practice moving forward and asking the boards to provide input, or if this is, just personnel board.
At this point, the ask is for the personnel board, primarily because, we recognize that we spend very little time in this domain of the management. And what we had seen was, in some previous evaluations, select boards basically saying, we have no information in this particular area, and therefore we're not really feeling comfortable saying much of anything about how the human resources practices are taking place in the town. So that's what precipitated the ask. I think your broader question, though, is that yes, when we look at sort of strategic initiatives that are ongoing, or effective governance, we do put in place goals both for ourselves and the town manager also includes goals that are related towards specific programs and objectives that we have in those areas. It's just we tend to, through our liaison work and through the dialogues directly with those boards, be more informed on those topics and than we are in this area.
Well, I mean, I think we've had this conversation before, and I guess I have concerns about, the personnel board being involved in the, the performance evaluation for the town manager. It's really not in our charter. We don't have the authority to do that. Or I mean, I'm sorry, in our bylaw. And, it's really it falls solely, on the select board to do that. That is your role and your, I mean, your authority. And so I just have some concerns about us being able to even provide, appropriate, data or information. It seems like that data really should come from HR if you want information, sort of hard data on turnover and, vacancies and hiring and retirements and things like that. The personnel board's not gonna have that. We don't, I mean, we'll get reports, but we have this sort of, like I keep saying, we have this little sliver into, insight into what the work that they all do on a daily basis. So that's my main concern with us being involved in the evaluation process. And please push back on me if you think I'm wrong. It's fine. I just.
I think the other, yeah, go ahead, Bill.
No, I think it's raised a really good question, and well, I think each of us on the personnel board, as well as, Mark's input as well, in terms of trying to see our way
Mhm.
and be comfortable with this, because if we are going to need to get data from the employees, and it's going to be in the form of some kind of a employee climate survey, employee survey, then, who is responsible for that? And is it the personnel board? Or is it a human resources organization? And, who's gonna sort of pay for this if in fact there's going to be Survey Monkey or whatever happens to be the instrument? And then, so I think it's a legitimate question as to try to pinpoint what our role is.
And I think the comment that came up at our last meeting, and I don't know if this was you, Kate, that said that, I'm trying to remember, but if an employee says they're unhappy here, that doesn't necessarily mean the town manager's doing a bad job. The town manager could be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, which is running the organization, but somebody might not like how she runs it. And, it gets very subjective too. I mean,
It does sound though like Mark is less interested in employee satisfaction than certain specific measures of,
yeah.
longevity and turnover. Which again, maybe that is HR data that could be funneled through the board to the select board, but at the same time, maybe the HR can provide it if that's what Mark wants, if that's what the select board wants. Maybe the personnel board does not have to provide it, but again, I'm not sure there's unwillingness to be involved and participate. I think we want to facilitate really if we can.
Yeah, and what I'm really trying to get at is I think there's an opportunity, and Josh, you're exactly right. We recognize that, or the idea is that employee satisfaction to some extent is influenced by how reliably executed are the processes, and there are factors I believe that we can track over time, like turnover, like the time with vacancies, that can tell us stuff about how effective our processes are for recruiting or for doing the periodic reclassification or marking to market, and try and establish the sort of desirability of the town of Concord as an employer. As I mentioned earlier, I realize that employee satisfaction is kind of a nice to have, but very difficult to act on. And at best, I think it indicates some direction over time if you have a long-term program going on. On the other hand, I think that recruiting data, for example, if our average vacancy window is 6 months, 9 months, or 3 months, that makes a real could make a big difference, or if it's stretching out to more than a year, that makes a difference in our organizational effectiveness, because we know there's going to be a certain amount of turnover. And so some of those metrics that you're looking at in the dashboard, it seems to me can help to inform us in terms of how are we doing in the frankly the marketplace, the competitive marketplace for talent, to fulfill the services that we need to do as a town. And I think those are the place to start with something like this. And so the ask is really, again, the select board's not comprised of HR experts, and we don't have a level of familiarity with the systems that the personnel board does. We're thinking, which, if that was the objective, to understand how we're doing primarily in maintaining a full and ready to perform organization, what would you suggest we might look at on an annual basis to track that?
I wonder if I could throw something out to maybe to be helpful and try to support, I think, what Mark and the select board's ask is. So, the town manager serves as the appointing authority for nearly all positions within the town. And almost all of those positions are solely appointed by the town manager. There are only a couple of positions that are appointed by the town manager with select board approval. So the human resources aspect of the organization almost never comes in front of the select board at a meeting. You know that there are some processes and procedures where the town manager makes a decision, but the employee has an appeal of sorts to the personnel board. And we've been through some of those before. I think where this group could be helpful is there could be a scenario where the town manager is making decisions that are resulting in a lot of appeals that are coming before you that the board may not necessarily be aware of. And that might be something that you could provide feedback, and either it's, a bad process, a bad policy resulting in a bad process, or somebody not making good decisions, that you might wanna flag something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, to say, I mean, since I've been on the board for a year plus, I haven't seen one of those yet.
No, but Bill.
No, but I think that maybe the select board doesn't know whether or not any of them
Right,
come through to say,
yeah,
whether that process plays out in a way that suggests there's a problem.
yeah, so I think, Mark, that is something that the board might find helpful, yeah.
Would, we were involved with an appeal, and that particular appeal, the individual then filed with MCAD.
Yeah,
And, but are there other instances in which there are filings with the MCAD, the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, the state organization responsible for discriminatory kind of claims and hearings? So are there other MCAD claims that take place? And I'm not aware that we've had any other than that one.
There's just one now, but it's for a union member, so
Yeah.
that would never come to the
Yeah.
personnel board.
I would be very hesitant to say that means anything either. The number of MCAD complaints is,
Cause,
doesn't,
yeah,
doesn't reflect anything in and of itself, but if there's an appeal to us that says,
right.
that suggests to us there's a policy or a practice that's problematic,
or,
that's more
or,
interesting.
or a decision maker that's.
Decision maker that's biased in some way or.
Yeah. But in terms of, what things are appealable to you, any disciplinary action can go through the process and for a non-union employee and end up in front of you to make a recommendation, right? You don't, you're not making. So your appeal in the sense of, you know, a group of reasonable people listening to something and can make a recommendation.
Right.
So there, I mean, there are things that can come to you that are, and if you're seeing them over and over, could be indicative of a problem that you might want to make note of.
So let me pose a hypothetical question. If an employee does not like his or her review, because the review, especially the merit component, is based on completion. So if there is a disagreement with the employee and the town's evaluation,
Yeah,
is that an appealable, can that go to the personnel board?
that's not appealable. It's disciplinary action.
Only disciplinary, okay.
That, but we have created. Some processes to provide some transparency and an opportunity for employees, like when we went through the whole class and comp. There were a lot of opportunities that the personnel board provided that you didn't have to.
Correct.
We didn't have to, but we used that as a venue to talk about
Right.
things and, you know, air some things out and get some more, voices
Right.
involved in the process, and I think that was helpful.
It was. The only other point that I was, looking at here is, it seems to me that there is merit in having an employee, I'm gonna call climate survey.
Yeah.
And in my previous, we would do it every 2 years. And the reason we didn't do it every year is because, the amount of energy and time it takes and so forth. But I certainly would encourage the town, I mean, this is me talking, and the personnel board can obviously concur, but that I think there is a value to actually saying, one of our goals is going to be that we're going to do a climate survey every 2 years or every X years. That way you set the bar. The first time, obviously, there's quite a bit of work in terms of, what are the questions and what's the purpose and so forth. But I think once you get over that initial hurdle, then I think things would typically be pretty much free flowing and so forth. So anyway, we don't have to talk about the employee survey idea tonight, but I think that's our role. Our role is to encourage the human resources organization in the town to perhaps broaden their scope of possible interest, possible looking at other aspects of working in the town, staying in the town as an employee. Those are the kind of activities that we can encourage.
Yeah. If I may, I would just add this another motivation that we had here was to signal that we recognize that the employees of the town are a very important stakeholder in the town. We spend time talking about what the climate is for people that are trying to run businesses in the town. We spend time talking about how well we're serving various populations of citizens and whether it be the senior citizens through the Council on Aging or the preschool populations and so forth, and recognizing that all of that is done through the efforts and the skills of the employee base. And so what we were trying to do is signal that we have an interest in making sure that employee base is receiving, the benefit of our attention, of our appreciation, and that we care what kind of workplace environment is being created here. So, going beyond just, the sort of negative focus that comes when there's concerns that a workplace environment may be hostile in some way, shape, or form to somebody, but actually sort of proactively looking at it and saying, what can we do to understand what it takes to continue to make Concord a very desirable place for people to work. And I think that we as citizens, now I'm talking as the select board and the personnel board, can be trying to send that message of appreciation and understanding to employees through some kind of evaluation process like this. So this is by no means trying to, find some problem so much as to find opportunities for improvement.
Any other comments, questions?
I guess my question is, how would we decide what our role is, and are you gonna work with the select board with Mark on figuring out a process? It sounds like most of you are on board with it, which is fine. I don't have an issue, I'm trying to be difficult, even though I
Yeah,
am
no.
difficult. It's fine, I just, yeah, I'd like to talk about what that would look like
Well,
at some point.
my thinking is that, this has been extremely helpful to get the input
Mhm.
from both Mark and Carrie. I think we can look at our next meeting to try to,
Use his input.
Yeah.
use the input and, further the ideas here as to what perhaps, we can contribute. I mean, I think there is the opportunities to do, for us to have quantitative data that is tied to recruiting and retention. That is certainly, we have access to, actually, the select board does too, through the minutes of our meeting, but I think it serves us as personnel board to see what other kind of quantitative data is there that's available, or we can extrapolate from data that's already there in one form or another, that would help to address what is the status of the recruiting and retention in the town. I think my comment about a climate survey, I think, is another vehicle that we don't have to, it's not ours, it's the town's. And therefore, the town has to make a decision whether or not they want to have a commitment, and if the commitment is yes, then what's the frequency? And how is that managed? Because we know from the Personnel Study Task Force that there was a survey that was conducted, but that data was given to other outside people outside the Personnel Study Task Force, but I think compromised the whole sort of process of asking for employee input. So, we have to work for the town would have to work through that. But I think we can come up with some more concrete ideas at our next meeting that addresses this. Does that sound reasonable for the agenda?
That's me.
Okay. Mark, thank you so much. I think we'll, obviously, with you as our liaison, we'll be keeping in touch.
Okay.
And asking probably for you for some comments as we continue down this path, but. We really do want to provide whatever help that you believe the select board is looking for. We're all contributing to the success of the select boards, as well as the town manager and employees in the town, so. We have a vested interest in being a contributor here.
Well, thanks, and I appreciate your help.
Okay, I guess we can, any other points before we move on to the next agenda item? Which is the classification actions number 5.
Okay, great. So we have 3 updated job descriptions. These don't need approval, we're just bringing them to you as an FYI heads up. First of which is the building commissioner, which is a vacant position right now that we're recruiting for. Just a few updates to kind of the reporting structure as we hired our community development director. You'll see that was corrected in there. Let's see. Scrolling. The next of which is the business manager for our, I'm sorry, was there any questions on the building commissioner? Before I move on. The next one was the business manager for Public Works, and this is actually an upcoming retirement. And so we took the opportunity to look at the job and kind of what the business manager responsibilities looked like, and we updated as needed there.
I noticed.
There's like 6 pages. And then the last one is the management analyst, which actually reports under the business manager. So as we were kind of taking a look at what the business manager does/did and will do, we wanted to make sure there was alignment between both positions in respect to kind of what each person has been doing in these roles.
Any, before we move on to the next one, any questions?
I have a question about the building commissioner. I just noticed that there'll be the floodplain administrator is, I'm just curious because, this has been sort of a challenge, at least in Wayland, who actually owns that, so I was curious.
Is that a new ad, Aaron?
It is.
Oh.
I don't know that I
Flood
equipped to
plain
answer
management.
that one. I think
Is
probably.
it
is the-
is it through your planning staff?
No, it's our conservation administrator,
Conservation, okay.
but we have a lot of conservation land, so I don't know,
A lot of flooding in Wayland too.
Yeah, they do, so it's. Maybe more, more of an ask for someone to take that on, but then in Concord, I don't know, I was just curious. It's not really, you don't have to answer.
I don't have the answer. I apologize.
It's okay, no worries.
Where did that change come from? But, the
Yeah.
addition of the floodplain.
These drafts came from Elisa,
Okay,
our community development director, who oversees this person.
interesting. Yeah, we can get an answer and send it out just to.
Yeah, I was just
Lisa
curious.
knows. It could be something Paul said I do that. it
Yeah,
Should be in
That's what I was
there.
thinking too.
Cause I think
Why-
Paul did have some.
Why don't we do
involvement.
that?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
All right, so then we have the new job description.
Yes, so this is one we need a vote on, which I'm hoping will be positive. So I just want to give some background and context. This would be a new position in HR. But to back up a little bit, since I've been here, there's been a lot of shifting and moving, in terms of positions and roles and really trying to identify the best needs for like. I've always felt I've had a good number of FTEs, but having kind of the right positions was key. So originally, at least when I was getting ready to come on board, there had been 6 FTEs, a director, an assistant director, 2 human resources generalists, a business systems position, probably because we had 3 different software systems we were dealing with, as we heard about earlier on the whiteboard, and then an administrative assistant. So then, as part of the last budget process, we did shift down to 5 FTEs. So now we have a director, which is myself, but I'm also the assistant town manager and have other divisions under me as well. We have the assistant director, which is Erin. We have 1 human resources generalist now, which is Nicole, that you met earlier this evening. And then we had repurposed that business systems position to the benefits manager role, which is Melissa, who hopefully you'll meet next time. And then we do have a human services generalist. She is 100% dedicated to human services. But she does do a little bit of HR stuff. That's Magnolia. So she still helps me with the packets, but that's probably going to get transitioned over. And then any HR work she is doing is focused solely on those human services divisions. So she does help recreation, council on aging, with their needs. Veterans and community services is literally 1 person in each division there. So she does do that. Otherwise, she's focused on all things human services. Like she's now staff liaison to the DEI commission. She helps me when needed with the disability commission. So she's working on all of those things. So tonight, this position that we've put together is the result of my take on kind of looking at the lay of the land. The Munis transition was huge. It's definitely bringing forth, we haven't really felt the full effects yet, but it will be bringing forth some, efficiencies as we get things more digitized moving forward. So one definite area that is in need is this concept of an employee development and engagement specialist. So one gap that's pretty significant from my perspective is somebody who can spend some strategy and time helping with kind of the long-term workforce goals, things tying into not only recruitment, but retention really is more important. Nicole's actually doing a really good job alongside Erin with getting, things out, like you've seen some of the flyers and things that we've done in terms of recruitment, but then, we really need to retain these folks. So this position will be focused on working with staff to, get trainings rolled out, some of the basic trainings as well as some of the, nice to have and should be doing trainings. That'll focus on that, our whole goal setting and performance review tracking. There is, definitely an element of work associated with that. In terms of making sure department heads, managers, supervisors are getting kind of continuous training and coaching on working with their direct reports to, get those clear, measurable and attainable goals set. Tracking, performance reviews when they come in, they're completed. We've all kind of had a little bit of hand in it this year. I know, Erin, you were gathering the reviews, but then I've been working on kind of the merit piece now, and this position would help, quite a bit with that. And again, focusing on things like succession planning, talking with employees and creating opportunities for some internal career developments, but really just focusing on training. Right now, we honestly are not really doing any training of any kind, and we're definitely deficient there. Some examples, annual sexual harassment and general harassment training should be done. Again, I mentioned supervisor training, customer service training, basic workplace safety trainings. We've talked a little bit about DEI training, which hopefully Magnolia and her human services role is going to kind of work on some of that, but there will definitely be overlap in terms of getting employees involved for that. We've had a recent request for some anti-Semitism training. So just kind of some of the needs that this position will fill. And then if they have any spare time, there'll be that nice catch-all that they'll help with any other projects as assigned. So if we needed them to pitch in with anything else within HR, that would be where they could plug that in. So the idea is to still stay at 5 FTE, which technically I'm a 70-30 split. As of fiscal 26, I'm 70% HR, 30% human services. So this would be the fourth role for full-time FTE count in HR. And it's been budgeted. This is the position that was vacated by Shauna Kearney when she went to work for retirement. So yeah, I know it's a lot.
Jeff, for purposes of
Yes.
Exempt versus non-exempt, the 5 FTEs, you've got 3 exempt.
Yes, the benefits manager is exempt, I'm exempt, and Erin is exempt. Nicole is not exempt. And this person would not be exempt either.
What strikes me a little is with this, there's, again, we've come up with this before, but 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet, there's the word manages, and that's probably a word that needs to be modified to something other than manages, because when you start having a lot of manages, then all of a sudden you no longer have a non-exempt job. It's an exempt job. And it seems like there are responsibilities here that are sort of right on that line of whether they're exempt or non-exempt. So I don't know how Josh or Kate feels about that, but
Yeah, I was a little surprised just now when you said it was a non-exempt role because the description sounds exempt.
yeah.
There's a higher risk of miscategorization as exempt as opposed to non-exempt, but there may be a case to be made that this was an exempt position.
I mean, I would love it if they were all exempt within HR. It certainly, brings some challenges, but I've built in mechanisms since obviously we don't have the budget to pay a lot of overtime. We just kind of do comp time. So like Nicole was here tonight and we'll work that out because I can't pay her overtime to come to the meeting. And probably she's the type of person that will probably come to more of these meetings if, the situation were different.
I'm not obviously familiar with sort of the state of compensatory time off, but quite a few years ago, that was not an acceptable alternative. If the employee felt that he or she should be receiving overtime in a non-exempt position. So when you have a situation in which you have an employee who is agreeing to that, so to speak. I mean, in some ways, that's actually an exception to what I
Yeah,
thought was the
I mean,
rule.
technically, the employee could really force the issue
Yeah,
and say, I
yeah,
want the overtime pay,
Yeah.
but.
So then. If this is like Josh, and I don't, Kate, but it did read as an exempt position.
Hmm.
So if it reads as an exempt position, but
I mean, it definitely will, I think, meet the salary, although they just changed the salary threshold for exempt, I'll look it up.
I
but-
think, I could be wrong, because I wasn't here for this, but I think all of the positions went through this exercise through class and comp.
Yeah,
And the HR generalist came out as a non-exempt,
Right.
and that was a little bit surprising.
it
I
always
guess.
surprised me, everywhere else I worked for generals, so. By nature of, I think, the confidential information, in
Right.
fact, this is almost what I was thinking through, even with Magnolia's position, depending on where things go with DEI and reporting and all that, like. One could almost argue that should be.
What is our process for determining whether a job is exempt or not exempt?
Well, right now, this position is, the working title is that employee engagement development, but it's technically the human resources generalist, so it had the same as the other human resources generalist.
But how was that one discussed? You said you were surprised when it came up that way, but who made that determination?
Who was the class and comp?
That was,
I'm gonna say clear go.
yes,
HR.
thank you.
Yes.
It's now called MSG or whatever, it's not MSG.
Plug in the duty.
Clearly I'm hungry, I need.
I was not here for that exercise, but that's the information.
but that determination was based on points.
Yeah, don't you, through the JQ that you have, don't you put, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You determine exempted,
That rates the
let's say.
pay grade, yeah.
Yes.
But then even when you look at, I'm actually just pulling up the 3-prong test for exempt,
Yeah,
cause I know they raised something with the limit with the,
they did.
yeah, so typical salary is a minimum of $4.55 per week, so it definitely meets
Mm.
that, and then salary amount. Yeah, 23.6, and then duties. So again, duties are considered executive, professional, administrative. Um.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a mix, right? I mean, this person is gonna have complete autonomy, they're gonna be working fairly closely with me,
Yeah.
and then even sometimes with Aaron, depending on.
Well, I think,
I mean, you could certainly have legal read this and
Yeah.
take a position if we think that's the best. Again, selfishly, I would love it if it was exempt, because then. If I need an extra couple of hours during the week for whatever, if it's to come here to pitch something or do like a training at, the police department and they have to come in for like, the shift that starts at 4 o'clock, like that would be handy as, so. These are things I'm thinking through in terms of how this is even going to work from a schedule point with training, for our, 24/7 operations. Obviously, the regular employees are here during working hours, but.
So I think it's a good idea to have, well, not that you wanna spend money on council, but, look at it, but I guess my concern is that, I think you mentioned it's kind of a generalist role, or at least on that level, so if you have one generalist who's non-exempt and one,
Yeah.
I have concerns about that.
how does, in Wayland, do you, in a non-exempt position, promote compensatory time as opposed to overtime?
Well, it's a little different, we don't have many non-union employees, and I don't think we have any non-union employees who are hourly, so it's not an issue, and it's just governed by contract,
I see.
so. But they, in their contract, they can take comp time in lieu, but it's at time and a half in lieu of OT, they can choose to do that, the employee. In our ASME union.
And that is pretty typical for unions,
Yeah.
that it's usually the OT first, and it's actually an interesting mix, we've got that arrangement in a couple of unions now, and it's probably 50/50
Yeah.
who takes comp time versus money, it usually kind of. Ends up where the person is in their life, the younger people I see usually going for the money, and then the
Yeah.
older people like, oh, I'm doing okay, I'd rather have more time, whatever, so.
So the urgency, Jess, to do this tonight what's the basis? Why?
We've had the vacancy since Shauna Lufton,
Hmm.
was it late April? May?
Yeah, something around then.
And then she helped us out on Fridays because actually her gig at the retirement office is only a 4-day-a-week job, so she actually helped us out on Fridays through June 30th. Like on a consulting basis, but we definitely, I'd like to try to get this position posted and filled this fall, like that's kind of my goal. We've got, the merit process. Or sorry, the goal setting process is gonna be gearing up in September. We're about to push the button, which I think I forgot to mention that in my update. We're on track to have everybody's merit pay. For their goals issued, on the August 28th paycheck, and then right on the heels of that, the communications are going out to have all supervisors start meeting with their direct reports, start building and setting those goals, because the selectmen are ahead this year and they got their goals done, so we're ready to roll that out, and that's gonna be, a pretty sizable element of work, that having somebody to help me do that would be key, so,
Can it be changed after it's posted from exempt to non-exempt if
Mhm.
council weighs in?
I'd be leery about that.
yeah, because we post the full job description, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
we
somebody's
do.
going to see it non-exempt, or we could put maybe exempt, non-exempt status pending, and then maybe that's the way to do it.
Well, I mean,
I would want to make it clear in the posting that determination is, up for grabs, but Mina's pretty quick, or maybe Kim, I don't know who would do this, it'd probably be Kim, but we could hopefully get a quick turnaround with it too, and I mean, this is probably something they would give to like first
so
year.
is this the kind of expenditure, Harry, that's allowed,
Yeah, I mean, this is a small dollar item. I think
Okay.
it's important. Jess and I have conversations quite a bit about exempt versus non-exempt positions. It's very difficult. It's,
Those
yeah,
middle
it's-
range. people.
yeah, we have a lot of, people in the middle, and it
Sevens
does.
and eights.
It does
especially.
cause issues, particularly with the people in the lower grades that are exempt and they are working extra hours, maybe alongside an hourly person who's, the hourly person is getting paid and, they're maybe working the same event. This comes up is coming up at the light plant, and not even with people at the lower end of the
Right,
pay grade, but with our engineers that are exempt and the line workers that are hourly, and they're getting called in, they're working the same event. And some people are getting paid and some people are not getting
Sure.
paid, so it's something we talk about a lot, so I certainly don't mind.
we should do that. And the other aspect of this though, is again, my concern about compensatory time for a
yeah,
non-exempt employee. And, I don't know what the prevailing legal, thought is today on that topic, but I would stay away from any situation where that could be ultimately a problem, because somebody who is with you and agrees to that, then
right,
several months later says, I really didn't understand, and
exactly.
you gotta go back.
It can
and
get messy real
it can
quick
get
and
messy
expensive,
very-
depending on where it goes.
Is that topic covered in the handbook draft? The compensatory time issue?
Yes, I
Yes.
believe so.
So that legal's looking at that now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we should get some
I'm
opinion
curious,
from
but
them on that.
I'll have to go and. We've got a draft of that, cause I'd be curious to see exactly,
No, I don't
How
think you
is it-
guys have seen the full draft yet,
Oh,
because it's
okay.
sort of legal. Legal's supposed to get it back, and then a full draft will go out to you and the employees, just review in advance of the meeting and read it, yeah.
I think Josh raises a very good point about, how is that worded? And what, based on our discussion tonight, and the practice that's been going on, is this, does that help or not?
Yeah. All right, I mean, it'd be great if we can at least get, approval on the job description, and then I'm thinking we might even be able to post it just with a disclaimer that it's, pending review or something, so, because I would want applicants to know that like, hey, this isn't guaranteed to be non-exempt or exempt, but,
Well, and I would, the one word I would take out is the manages.
Manages.
Yeah.
Managers.
And I didn't see any other, I mean, again, it says, as we're pointing out, it's right in the walking the line.
Yep, as they both are, it's, I don't know, part of me wants to send both descriptions out and get a legal opinion on Nicole's.
But the question is,
Wow.
I think,
I think that's worthwhile.
If they're looking at them, I'd be like,
Yeah.
take me a look, cause they're, again, it's the same job.
It's the same,
title.
yes.
I was just gonna
I
say,
think that's a good idea.
And again, my intention is not to work, Nicole, 60 hours a week and,
Yeah.
I do that with Aaron, but. That's cause we need
Yeah.
this role, we need a body, but.
24/7, right?
We all are.
Okay, well then, I think what I'm hearing is that we're going to request that this position and the other generalists be reviewed by council to determine the accuracy of the status, whether it's exempt or non-exempt.
Yep.
Okay. I guess we need a motion though to approve the content of the
Yes.
employee development and engagement specialist. Waiting for guidance on the classification.
I will move that we approve the employee development and engagement specialist position. Pending resolution of the FLSA status of the role. With council guidance,
Second,
All in favor? Josh?
yes.
Kate
yes.
and Bill, yes, okay.
Yay, thank you, everyone. Now we'll have another report we can produce on all the fabulous training and development we're gonna do.
Well, do you have put together a plan for?
No, we have no
Training.
plan at all, just that we're not
Okay,
doing
well-
anything, so. Sexual harassment's gonna be the first training on top of the list. I know Nate was thinking about doing some trainings on, SharePoint and something else, because this came up when I was talking with him about SharePoint earlier. And again, there's so many even, trainings that like our EAP can come out. We just need somebody to take the time to kind of research, identify, hey, find these trainings and then organize it, get the rooms booked, get the messages out to the departments, encourage, SMT and whatnot to be like, give your employees time to come to this training and just, it's somebody that can invest that kind of time. And then again, work with me when I've identified with SMT, like kind of like who's somebody that's really got some potential that wants to move up and where can we plug them in to get maybe a training or whatever it is. So it's the things that we just need to focus on, because again, we're doing great, I feel now with recruitment, but we're doing nothing once they're here. It's like, okay, you're hired.
So I would encourage you, Jess, to take the back of a napkin
Mm-hmm.
and list for the balance of FY 26, what training and roughly what time, so.
Yeah.
And
I got my one.
I'm happy to share. And I would encourage you to share that with us,
Yeah.
for feedback.
And that's the thing, there should be like a regular kind of like training calendar.
Well, but the back of the envelope will
Yeah.
take care of the next 9 months or so.
And
Okay,
the last thing is there's some hard dollar savings to us too, as a result of some of the trainings. We'll get credit on different insurances, yeah.
yes,
We should start the list with that, yeah.
Yeah, and then if we're retaining people, we're ultimately saving on recruitment costs, it costs money to go out and recruit and hire somebody, and we're paying for medical exams and whatever else, background checks. What would you have off the top of your head what the average prices that we spend when we hire somebody for all the medical and pre-placement checks?
If they do the Mount Auburn screenings, it's about 200 to 300.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're running the job ads, Indeed, I see charges all the time. Like $100 here, so. Yeah, there's those costs too, that if we can get people and keep them and not have a turnover,
Right.
okay, so we're gonna move on to number 6, which is the personnel board membership. We're still struggling with getting one person. We obviously need 2 people. I think what I'll do is reach out to Lauren.
Lori Austin, I actually sent her a message.
Oh, you
over,
sent- okay.
Yeah, so and I copied you, so and I
Okay,
also
great.
forwarded you, she sent us back in June 3.
Oh, send
three
that.
cards, I sent those.
Oh,
in,
okay, 'cause I
they'll be at
couldn't-
the top.
I couldn't-
One of them is locked in with another committee until 26. The other two were older, but older applications,
Right.
not older people,
Mhm.
older applications, they may or may not still be interested, but.
Worth
And
it.
then I said, hey, if there's anything new that's coming, let us know, because we're looking.
A different committee put a letter in the break. Or anything, you know, we're seeking interested candidates.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you did, but I can't remember which committee.
Can't either.
Does the bridge charge for advertisement?
I don't think charge for letters to the editor, but. It was a.
No, for
it was a
advertising.
letter, yeah. And I don't, they screen, they don't include everything submitted, but they may, I don't know.
That's.
They charge for obituaries.
Not relevant.
No, I didn't know.
$400.
Oh, okay.
Not that I'm.
It's a lot.
But it's right in the, I was surprised. Okay. So. I think we're ready for adjournment.
I move we adjourn,
Second,
7-11.
All in favor? Bill? Yes.
yes.
All right, unanimous.
And I
Carrie,
still
thank you,
want-
thank you so much for
Second
coming
Wednesday of
and hanging
September.
around
as soon
with
as-
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should clear that,
Yeah.
everybody's available on the 10th.
Second Wednesday of the month, which will be September
At
10th.
beginning of the year for me, for year, yeah.
September, I'm sorry.
10th, Wednesday the 10th, that would be the second Wednesday,
Yeah.
that's typically when we meet, but we gotta make sure we've got three bodies.
Well, I do thank.
I'll try to work
Josh,
with you on
and
the
Kate
agenda
for
before I leave, but you'll have.
Hanging in there and.
I'll hear
Yeah.
from you.
I was thinking,
I'm glad
Yeah,
that you have to be
Reminder.
During the, Mark,
Yeah.
how do you have the fourth?
I was wondering if you were taking 5 minutes for me, like. oh,
Yeah.
I was clacking away, I was like, somebody's gotta be taking
This
this.
is going.
Probably.
I wanted to make, I knew that was,
Are we good for the 10th?
hard to
though?
talk,
Is that 10th?
right.
Yeah, it is. That's okay, I can watch the video.
Everybody free on the 10th?
Yes, yeah, I already have it in my calendar, I'm good.
Alright, now we're gonna adjourn.
Okay.